you know, every time that you leave your culture behind to impersonate someone else's culture, you know, you end up losing yourself. Hi, my name is Fatima. I'm a 25 years old woman, born and raised here in Dakar, Senegal. I work remotely as a customer support representative in a US-based company. Literature in general is something I cherish because of how much it has the ability to shape my view and my ideas, you know. And why African literature in particular? It's because when I read African literature, I can read about myself. It feels like I'm rediscovering myself. The experience I live in an everyday, you know, life brought to words and something I could never explain. You know, it's like reading about myself and rediscovering myself. So Chimamanda Ngozie Adichie is a multi-award winner, a writer, a feminist, and an activist. So the list goes. She was born and raised in Nigeria, in the university town of Nsukka, where both her parents worked in the school. The father was a teacher and the mother was the head of the school. So later on, at the age of 19, she moved to United States to pursue her studies. I came across a video on YouTube when I once was watching a TED Talk. And the name of that TED Talk in particular was The Danger of a Single Story. So it was the author, Chimamanda, talking about, you know, like a very interesting subject I related to, and I loved how logical and well-developed her speech was. That's what seduced me on her. So I started doing research about her, and I landed on another TED Talk that called We Should All Be Feminists. So that's where I really fell in love with her writing, with her ideas. So that's how I knew her, basically. And the first novel I read was We Should All Be Feminists, and then Americanah. Americanah is a story of a Nigerian girl who left Nigeria for America, only to return to her home country after a few years. So the story traces her experience in America and in Nigeria, and also her love life with Ngozie. That is pretty much another character that had a very interesting landscape and a very interesting growth in Nigeria and also in London. The book main ideas revolves around race, culture, identity, and most importantly, feminism. So why would I say race? And I think race is really tied to identity in this book. Throughout the book, you know, when I swipe on the pages, I just feel like it's a quest, you know, of identity of a girl, an innocent girl that left Nigeria in search for herself, you know. And I just feel like she grew a lot, the character grew a lot when she left Nigeria to America, where for the first time in her life, people identified her as Black for the first time. So she's Black, she knows that. The color of her skin is Black, but she was never, you know, pointed out as Black. So that was the first experience, and that really talked to me, you know. As a Black girl, I never experienced that in my life, but I can feel it through how she writes it, how she explains it, that for the first time in America, I felt like I was Black. It doesn't depend on where you're from, your background. You are Black. You are not Senegalese, you are not Nigerian, you are Black. So that was very interesting for me. And she just learned to cope with that idea of other people looking at her through different, you know, through different lenses. You actually start to understand how American thinking are shaped. And she struggled a lot to just cope with that lifestyle. But at the end of the day, she also lost herself in the process when she starts, you know, changing her hair. Another topic we can talk about is culture. And if I say culture, I would say the difference there is between the Nigerian culture and the American culture. You know, throughout the book, also you can feel how a family just loses that culture, like that Nigerian culture at some point in America, because you put all your efforts in blending in America, and in America you feel like there's a variety of cultures just going around you, and you just try to catch up, and life just goes so fast. It's easy to lose yourself, and that's what happened to me on the landscape or on the view of a family, where she even started dating white Americans. You know, it takes a lot of let's say blending in to be able to do that. And in the beginning, you can see when she went to Auntie Uju's apartment, you know, her first day in America, she tried to implement that culture into Adichie, so the young boy, his cousin. But Auntie Uju just, you know, was reluctant about that, because it feels like when you bring in culture, you know, your Nigerian culture, you are marginalized or left aside. So Auntie Uju didn't want Adichie to just be rooted into, you know, Nigerian culture, and she might have her reasons. And Ifemelu started to believe that almost, that if you are too Nigerian, you won't be given a chance in America. So that's very complex and interesting how she developed that idea in the book. The last topic I will talk about, and I feel like the book really insisted on, is feminism. How the book portrayed the character of Ifemelu as a girl or a woman that stand out for herself. You know, in every stage of the book, Ifemelu was a girl that spoke her mind, even in a in the very uncomfortable situations, you know. All these subjects that we just talked about are also highlighted in different posts from Ifemelu's blog, a mean that she used to speak her mind and raise her voice about different topics such as racism and many other sensitive topics in America. There are also many passages in the book that really resonated with me throughout my reading of the book, and I'm gonna read you some of them. So this passage happened just after she hangs up a phone call with a complete stranger that complimented her about how perfect her American accent was. And I quote, "Only after she hung up did she begin to feel the stain of burgeoning shame spreading all over her, for thanking him, for crafting his words, 'You sound American,' into a garland that she hung around her own neck. Why was it a compliment, an accomplishment to sound American? She had won. She had won indeed, but her triumph was full of air." There is also another passage that I really like in the book. It was when Ifemelu talked about those people that comment on her post of how lost she thinks those people are. And I quote, "Because home was now a blurred place between here and there, and at least online, they could ignore the awareness of how inconsequential they had become." If I have to speak about how I felt at the end of the book when I closed the last page of the book, I would say it was a feeling of, first of all, incompleteness of how the book ended, but also I was very contented on how the author just speaks about different subjects, you know, that I actually somehow related to. It is the subject of race, the subject of culture, and a subject of not, you know, leaving your culture behind. You know, every time that you leave your culture behind to impersonate someone else's culture, you know, you end up losing yourself. And I loved how, you know, throughout the book, you can see her moving away from her true self, but then finding herself back again. That's what I really loved about the book. So the most important lesson I got from the book was the importance of identity, of how important it is to stay true to yourself. If I really have to recommend a book, a must-read book to everybody, it will be We Should All Be Feminists for Every Man and Every Woman by Chimamanda Ngozie Adichie. And also another book that I really loved reading was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I really recommend.